Just like Thanos, it's inevitable. Picks are going to be made during the NFL draft, and current players' values are going to change. Now, sometimes it's for the good, and sometimes it's for the bad. But the truth is this: ignoring how the draft changes things is one of the fastest ways to make your fantasy football title chances just disappear. That is right, Headliner Nation. Today we're talking about a few of the bigger winners and losers in fantasy football after the NFL draft. Now, things happen all NFL offseason that affect fantasy football. Things like free agency, the draft, trades, injuries. Sometimes it's just way too much to keep up with, but don't let that get in the way of complete and utter dominance when it comes to fantasy football. All you need to do is get yourself a 2025 fantasy football draft guide. All the information you need in one easy to navigate spot. It's dynasty content, it's redraft content, it's cheat sheets, sleepers, breakouts, busts, injury analysis, coaching changes, the dynamic running back rating, and so much more. You need to head over to tfhdraftguide.com and get yours right now. There's links down below in the description, and the price is actually going to be increasing come June, so do not wait. But here's what's awesome: it's already live. There's already content on there right now. And up until the start of the NFL season, we can add content and update existing content so you always have the most updated information at your fingertips. But now, let's talk about a few of the bigger fantasy football winners and losers after the NFL draft. And I'm in a good mood, so let's start off with a winner, and let's talk about Jacksonville and their drafting of Travis Hunter. Who is the biggest winner in this draft pick? It is Travis Hunter himself. He avoided Cleveland, and that is an absolute win. Now, Jacksonville is a destination that's going to allow him to play both sides of the field. He is going to take occasional pressure in the passing game off of Brian Thomas Jr., which is good. You got to remember, Jacksonville just lost Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk, and they have a new head coach in Liam Cohen, who is an offensive-minded head coach. Now, I'm not one of those fantasy talking heads that is going to crown Travis Hunter as a fantasy wide receiver one. I don't think that's the case right away. I really don't think it hurts Brian Thomas Jr. that much either, though. How about newly acquired De'Ami Brown? Yeah, that probably hurts him quite a bit. Trav is going to have some big weeks, but he's also going to have some dud weeks. Now, I could see him right around that 70 catch for 1,000 yards and maybe a handful of touchdowns or so come end of season. We cannot forget that we need to see better play from Trevor Lawrence, though, as well. I personally hope they play Travis Hunter in the slot the majority of the time. If that happens, we could be seeing big plays from him a lot more regularly. And I say that because we can't forget that Liam Cohen was a part of the Chris Godwin renaissance in Tampa Bay by moving him to the slot as well. Keeping Brian Thomas Jr. on the outside and moving Travis Hunter to the slot would be an absolute nightmare for opposing players. How about another winner? Let's go to New York and the Giants and talk about Malik Neighbors. And honestly, full disclosure, right now, Malik Neighbors for me may be just behind Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson in my fantasy rankings. He already had an upgrade at quarterback pre-draft in Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston. Because it wouldn't have mattered who started the season, either one of those guys would be light years better than what they had in New York last year. But then we saw the Giants trade up late in the first round and grab quarterback Jackson Dart, who honestly, I actually like Jackson Dart more than I like Cam Ward, which may be somewhat of a hot take, but Jackson Dart could be the future in New York. Then New York didn't end up with a big-time playmaker on offense, maybe like a guy like Travis Hunter, who we just talked about in the first round. He would have played a lot more wide receiver than defensive back had he gone to New York. Neighbors has basically the same competition for targets in 2025 that he had in 2024. And in 2024, he had 170 targets. Now he gets a better quarterback, which will improve the overall offense, giving him more opportunities at touchdowns. We could be looking at a season here in 2025 where Malik Neighbors flirts with 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns, and that would be absolutely huge. But it's not all gumdrops and unicorns. There were some losers as well. How about Kmet in Chicago? Now, to me, this was a WTF type pick. Sure, it works picking Colston Loveland from a 12 personnel standpoint on the field, but not only did they draft a tight end at 10 overall, they didn't even take the best one on the board in Tyler Warren. On a team like Chicago that is trying to turn things around, they just had other pressing needs. If I'm in Chicago and I'm trying to build my offense more in the first round like this, I'm going to go with a guy like running back Omarion Hampton at 10 overall, and then look at taking a tight end in the second round. Maybe a guy like Mason Taylor out of LSU. The Bears have multiple picks in the second round. But when it comes to being a loser, it's got to be Cole Kmet's value in fantasy. Targets were going to be available with the departure of Keenan Allen, and Kmet could have definitely been a steal in 2025. Now, Kmet isn't going to suck just because Colston Loveland is going to get everything. The truth is, they are both going to get work and both be on the field at the same time. They are going to eat into each other's production. It's going to be impossible to know weekly who is going to get the bulk of the looks in this offense at the tight end position. I really don't see either one of these guys being top 12 fantasy options at the tight end position. However, I will say this though. The fact that they didn't go Omarion Hampton at number 10 really helps out DeAndre Swift. Back to a couple winners though. How about CeeDee Lamb in Dallas? They took offensive lineman Tyler Booker. And Jerry, I guess he's still going all in, y'all. And so many people expected Dallas to try to get another playmaker in this offense. There was talks about them going running back, and then we saw during the draft that Micah Parsons said that Dallas was going to go after Teteroa McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona, but he came off the board at number 8 to Carolina before Dallas. So they end up going offensive lineman Tyler Booker, who was damn excited to be taken by Dallas. And I don't hate that pick at all. They needed help on the offensive line after the retirement of Zach Martin, so I get it. But this means that once again, CeeDee Lamb has no real competition for targets in this offense. Had they gone with a guy like T-Mac early in the draft, we would have for sure seen a decrease in targets going towards CeeDee Lamb in 2025. But now Brandon Cooks is gone. We've seen that Jalen Tolbert and Jonathan Mingo are not going to be alphas in this offense that are going to pull a lot of volume away from CD. Add in the fact that he's going to get his starting quarterback back in Dak Prescott, who made him an 1,800-yard receiver in 2023, and that the running game may be at its lowest level in quite some time. The writing is on the wall for another huge CeeDee Lamb year, and he's definitely a winner here from the NFL draft. Now, how about in Indianapolis? I think Anthony Richardson, as of right now, is a winner. They drafted tight end Tyler Warren, the top-rated tight end in the draft. But if you're a realist, you know that Anthony Richardson hasn't really lived up to the hype just yet. But this may be the year that he has no more excuses. They have multiple capable wide receivers in the likes of Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Adonai Mitchell, Alec Pierce, and now they just added the best tight end in the draft in Tyler Warren? I mean, Anthony Richardson is going to have high-level options at all three levels of the field. Add in the fact he's going to have a great running game with Jonathan Taylor and plenty of pass-catching options, and now only has to beat out Daniel Jones on the depth chart. In my opinion, Anthony Richardson may be one of the bigger off-season winners that really no one wants to trust in 2025. All right, back to a loser. Let's go to Tampa Bay and talk about Jaylen McMillan. They drafted Emeka Egbuka in the first round at 19th overall. And this one right here was a kick to the right nut. I had a lot of hope for Jaylen McMillan in 2025. With Chris Godwin coming off major injury and the way that Baker looked his way the end of 2024, things were lining up great for Jaylen McMillan. We also know that Mike Evans is getting a little bit older. Overall, from a football standpoint, this pick makes sense. You have to look at it as Jaylen McMillan and Emeka Egbuka being the future in Tampa Bay. But this year, they're just going to eat into each other's target share to start the year until Chris Godwin comes back to full health. Once that happens, it's going to be absolutely hit or miss rest of the season. We know Tampa Bay is going to want to throw the ball a lot, but they have plenty of options to spread it around to. Mike Evans, Jaylen McMillan, Chris Godwin, Emeka Egbuka, Cade Otton, and you cannot forget that they also have two very good pass-catching running backs in Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. Now that McMillan is going to have more competition for targets even before Godwin reaches 100% health, has to make him a draft loser as of right now. Baker Mayfield, on the other hand, huge winner. Now, a couple picks later, we had another loser. It's Naji Harris of the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers went out and drafted Omarion Hampton, running back out of UNC. And if the Egbuka pick to Tampa Bay was a kick to the right side, this one was a finisher to the left nut. Naji Harris was probably my favorite off-season player after he was signed by the Chargers. I was going to have him ranked inside the top 12 running backs this season. We know that Harbaugh wants to pound the rock on the ground and play hard defense. Naji Harris just fits what Harbaugh likes. Then LA goes out and takes one of the best running backs in the draft in Omarion Hampton. Now, I am not only going to severely drop Naji down my rankings, I don't think I even want to draft him at all in 2025 anymore. You don't spend a first-round pick on a running back when you already have a running back unless you plan on that dude being the future. And I say that because Naji only signed a one-year contract. So starting in 2026, Hampton could have the full backfield in LA and be an absolute monster. However, in 2025, this backfield is going to split touches and be nothing but a headache to figure out weekly. But let's end everything on a positive note and talk about another winner, Jordan Love in Green Bay. They went out and drafted Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. Now sure, Green Bay hadn't taken a first-round wide receiver in forever, but they have taken wide receivers in the second round in both 2022 and in 2023 in Christian Watson and Jayden Reed. In fact, they have young pass catchers all over the place. Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, Jayden Reed, Christian Watson, Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave, and now Matthew Golden have all been drafted inside the first 3 rounds of the draft over the last 4 years. And yet, this passing offense just can't seem to figure out what works consistently. Now, I will admit that Green Bay has a lot of young options, but none of them really have what it takes to be a true NFL wide receiver 1. Matthew Golden now has that opportunity though. Watson is injury prone and overrated if you ask me. Jayden Reed is a little bit more of a situational option, and Doubs and Wicks just aren't consistent enough to rely upon. That mixture of wide receivers could just never give Love stability in the offense. Golden is the most talented overall wide receiver on the team right now. He is going to be their wide receiver 1. That's going to allow the other guys to play specific roles and not try to be something they aren't though, and that is huge. So no matter how you slice it, it all points to Jordan Love being fed pass catching options to make him successful, and that makes him an NFL draft winner when it comes to fantasy football. Alright, so there you have a few of the bigger winners and losers, but you know we like to stay interactive on this channel. I want to know what you think, so leave me a comment down below in the comment section. Who do you believe were the biggest winners and losers in fantasy football after the NFL draft is completed? Now, I have told you guys all off season long, I'm going to do my best to be as active as I possibly can in the comment section. If you leave a comment on one of my videos, chances are you're probably going to get a response. Now, if you enjoyed today's video, do me a favor and hit the like button if you haven't already, and then consider subscribing if you're not already a member here of Headliner Nation. We got you covered with all things NFL all year long. So if that's what you're looking for, you found your new home. But I'm going to go ahead and get out of here today. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day, and then most importantly, do your part to make the world a better place.
Analytics, all the chain, all the channels, not the same.